Last year I made a video on E3 and another one on F3, which if you're not aware, is the yearly fan game showcase hosted by Kaze, aka the Mario Madman 64. This time I decided to consolidate both of those events into one video. I've often considered fan-generated works to be deserving of respect just as much as the big studio stuff, which is why I dedicate so much time to it, so I think it's appropriate to honor those things in the same video as the quote-unquote real games. E3, or at least what we're gonna call E3, is old news now, so let's talk about F3 first. Pokemon Pisces is a hack of Emerald, which I still haven't played because I'm a Gen 2er and I just didn't really feel like it. There's also Vinemon Saucy Edition. I haven't had that much Vine Sauce exposure other than that Mario World ROM hack from 2 years ago, and admittedly I'm more of a passive enjoyer of Pokemon rather than an avid fan, and I'm not sure I have the spiritual strength to make that leap right now. But they do look very well made. Immediately that was followed up by TTYD Tower of Trials, which appears to be a roguelike version of TTYD with all kinds of new enemies and stats and whatnot. And if any of this sounds familiar, you might remember a ROM hack of the original Paper Mario called Black Pit, which blew me away when I played it. This is kinda like what a TTYD version of that mod might look like, so I'm immediately sold on that premise. Mario and Luigi Superstar Simulator. This one looks nuts. They got Paprika Rigatoni in it. They got Donkey Kong. Who could ask for more? Well, I guess you could ask for Shy Guy Surfing. This looks fun, but in a way that could really piss you off, like second-to-second moments of escaping death. Super Mario Bros. Was a game, and then they made a movie out of the game, and then they made a game out of the movie. That's very impressive. Then there's Mario 127, the sequel to Super Mario 63, which is a game that I have gushed over a lot in the past. The movement looks insane, like the movement of a 3D Mario somehow imported into a 2D Mario. I didn't even think that was possible. CTGP 8 Deluxe adds 3 billion courses to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a game that already has a ridiculous number of courses. Online Crash Team Racing. From what I understand, this is the original Crash Team Racing with a ton of enhancements, not the least of which is online play. Even though I've never played the original, I've always liked how it looked. It looks very speedy, very arcadey and drifty, if that makes any sense. If you have played the game, maybe you can tell me if that makes sense or not. Mario Kart Double Dash Plus adds in a bunch of new courses to Double Dash, including new battle maps, which is pretty great. Super Mario 3D World Ghostly Glow looks neat just in time for Halloween. And there's another 3D World mod that I didn't see the name for. There's an upgraded version of Bowser's Fury, which lets you play as all the characters from 3D World and even added in simultaneous co-op. That kind of thing was neat in regular 3D World, but to see it in this more open world setting, I think that's nuts. Perfect Dark DX is looking pretty great. I've often regretted never finishing the original game, although the frame rate was somehow even worse than GoldenEye, so I'll just blame it on that. DK94. This is one of the best games on the original Game Boy, with its robust movement options and surprisingly detailed sprite work, and now there's a DX version that is fully in color. I am loving how it looks. They got some Bikman 269 type mods of Mario Kart Wii and new Super Mario Bros. Wii. Anytime I see these kinds of hacks, that's just what I call them. They showed off the demo for Super Mario Gravity that dropped earlier this year. I've actually played this already, and it's very promising. And Super Mario Orbit looks pretty neat too. Luigi's Quest looks like a lot of fun, and then there's Hat Kid Steals the Declaration of Independence 3 King Slayer. I don't even know how to describe this one. The Patchman's Workshop is a creepy-ass Tim Burton-looking-ass Mario 64 ROM hack, which I will definitely be playing the instantaneous millisecond it comes out. Just when I think Mario 64 ROM hacks have done all they can do, they always manage to throw me for a loop. My man Zach SM64 Pie came out with Shining Stars 4, but more importantly, Bowser's Dank Rave 12. This is why I live. Mario in the Multiverse. Mario goes to a bunch of other game worlds like Resident Evil and Doom, which appears to be using the Shotgun Mario system. That's gonna be a big deal. Star Fur Day 64. This is Star Fox 64, except they say fuck and make ligma jokes, so really, they just added in the one thing that was missing from the original game. This should have been included in the improvement to existing games category. Assuming this is an actual ROM hack that you'll be able to play and not just some elaborate joke, then setting the jokes aside for a second, this is actually pretty exciting. Star Fox 64, as far as I can tell, has virtually no ROM hacking scene to speak of, and I've been wanting them to happen for years, so even just from that perspective, it's really cool to see this. Even if it just turns out that all the new dialogue is just different permutations of Pigma balls. Pigma ball! Ocarina of Time Crystal Clocks. This is an upgraded version of an existing mod that I've unfortunately never gotten to play, but it looks pretty spicy. And it has a relatively short runtime, which would be nice in a marathon setting. That's the end of the official F3, but I do want to give some honorable mentions to a couple of fan games that weren't there, such as Super Mario Sunshine 2001 by the creator of Luigi's Mansion Extra Tangy, which is one of my personal favorites. I really dig these beta recreation mods, so it's nice to see one of my favorite Mario games of all time get the treatment. There's also Mario Stellar Island Quest, which is just looking snazzy as fuck. It's got the graphics, it's got the music, it's got all that good shit going on, you know what I mean. Earthbound 64 recreation is still in development, as is Paper Luigi and the Marvelous Compass, and Mark Kirko is still going strong with Banjo-Kazooie mods as usual, because God knows Rare isn't gonna do it. With any luck, there'll be just enough games to do another Christmas marathon, that is assuming I don't have a heart attack and die before then. Imagine if that actually happened, that'd be hilarious. Alright, now let's talk about E3, which at this point is just a colloquialism for all the big studio stuff that isn't out yet. Like I said before, I consider this generation of games to be the inessential generation, where there's a lot of stuff that looks kinda cool, but very little that's telling me that I need to buy a PS5 right this second. This E3 season only slightly challenged that perception. Summer Game Fest was pretty dry, as it so often is, although it was refreshing to see Jeff acknowledge industry layoff stuff. The first thing they showed off was LEGO Horizon, and I'm pretty sure when I first saw this, my brain turned into a bowl of soup. Horizon is accepted in some circles to be kind of an enigma of modern video games. They always look extremely pretty and sell 3 billion copies, and yet I rarely hear people talk about it. No More Room in Hell 2, Quidditch Simulator that looks about as good as the one from the GameCube. Cuffbusters looks like the kind of game where the developers are just praying that it goes viral on Twitch. I can already see XQC playing it right now. Star Wars Outlaws is an open-world Star Wars game by Ubisoft. I feel like every company gets to make a Star Wars game at some point in their lives. I mean, even Quantic Dream is making a Star Wars, for God's sake. We got a game called Never. Civ 7, that's for nerds, unlike Mario Land. Black Myth Wukong, now that looks like a video game, you know what I mean? All kinds of MetaQuest stuff, come on, that's not how you make a video game. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Sons of Bitches had a funny trailer. Slitterhead looked pretty cool, it's made by the Silent Hill guy, I think. Sonic the Hedgehog snooping as usual, I see. I feel like every time they show off a new Sonic game, half of everybody says it looks incredible, and then the other half says it looks like a hedgehog's dick, but people seem a little more unified on this one. When Sonic fans can unite on something, it'll be a very happy day. Monster Hunter Wilds is a new game in another series that I keep saying I'm gonna start playing and then I never make any real effort to do so whatsoever. My first exposure to Monster Hunter were those bonus missions in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker where you get to shoot them with the Fulton launcher. Peace Walker is underrated. Phantom Blade Zero, I wanted to say this reminded me of Ghost of Tsushima, but then I remembered I never actually played that game at all, so that would be a very stupid thing to say. Sony's State of Play kicked it off with their own Overwatch game. I don't know why. God of War is on PC now, but still no Bloodborne, so that's cool. Dynasty Warriors has graphics. Infinity Nikki, this looks like one of those games that I would never play, but one of my friends would be playing it non-stop and telling me how funny and unironically good it is. You know, it looks like one of those. There's some VR stuff as usual. Whenever I see VR shown off at these events, I'm always asking myself the same question, and that question is, who is playing these games? There's a Marvel Overwatch knockoff which already has a donkey video on it, so you know it's good. Where Winds Meet is another game that almost made me say it reminded me of Ghost of Tsushima. Until Dawn has way more graphics than the Silent Hill 2 remake. This looks kinda rough, and people who've actually played the original game have been saying pretty much the same thing, but far more articulately. I've always wanted to play the original because it's supposed to be one of the great gaming masterpieces, so I'll probably just play the old version so this one doesn't ruin it for me. Then they closed it out with a new Astrobot, which looks less like a funny tech demo and more like a legitimate big balls 3D platformer. It's always nice to see a non-Mario 3D platformer where the developers actually tried. What wasn't there was Death Stranding 2, but it was shown off in greater detail in an earlier state of play. From the standpoint of gameplay, Death Stranding is not fun per se, but it can be very meditative and almost zen-like in the right moments, and I think a lot of gamers were confused by that because gaming is not exactly what you'd call a zen-like activity. I think for me, what was missing the most from the first Death Stranding was funny, goofy shit. I mean, it was there, but I guess I wanted more. I think what I loved about Metal Gear so much in retrospect is that the games remember to be offbeat and goofy, which counterintuitively makes the serious shit that it does have to say easier to digest and appreciate. Metal Gear proved several times that you don't have to choose between fun and having something to say. The polarities of silliness and seriousness are easier to appreciate when they achieve a certain balance. Death Stranding 2 appears to be embracing the goofy shit. You got this little puppet guy and Higgs is now Harley Quinn for some reason and he shoots people with a fucking guitar. I don't know what is going on here and I doubt that will change when I actually play it. I often picture Microsoft and Xbox as the guy who's stuck in the past when the coolest thing was epic bacon like a boss, awesome sauce, fucking cool beans, whatever they said back then. But they actually had a surprisingly strong show this year, which was completely unexpected on the back of the closure of several studios and rumors that they were just gonna quit. They started out with this trailer for Black Ops 6, which has all this nutso conspiracy shit. I half expected Alex Jones to pop up and start telling me about aliens and Goetian Hellspawn, which is a pretty good segue into Doom the Dark Ages. This looks absolutely unhinged, but it has the misfortune of having to live up to Doom Eternal, whose nightmare difficulty still offers one of the best single-player experiences I have ever had. Not to mention the ugly business with Mick Gordon. State of Decay 3, I get enough of that when I go to the dentist. Dragon Age The Veilguard, Starfield expansion, Fallout 76 expansion, bleh. Expedition 33, South of Midnight looks real artsy. Some people might find that annoying and pretentious, but at least it stands out a little. Metal Gear Solid Delta looks incredible visually, and it's nice to see the option of a more modernized control scheme. I do hope that the game will still feel balanced with these enhancements. There are some games, like the N64 version of Resident Evil 2, where the control enhancements basically break the game in half. I doubt that'll be the case here, and I certainly hope I'm right. But while these quality of life enhancements are nice to see, I feel like MGS 1 and 2 could benefit from them way more. If you've never tried to play MGS 1 on the PlayStation, honestly, don't do it. It'll make you rip your own teeth out with your bare hands. As cool as Metal Gear Delta looks, I'm hoping these enhancements can make it to the games in the series that need them more desperately. Rare's previously announced Everwild was absent, and the next Banjo-Kazooie game that everyone keeps gaslighting themselves into thinking is real was also absent, but Sea of Thieves is still going, and Perfect Dark got a new trailer. That was a genuine surprise. I assumed this game was just gonna get quietly cancelled, but nope, it's still real, even if it's not being made by Rare. It looks like the kind of game that'll either have really cool speed runs or will have some overpowered mechanic that the developers completely overlooked that trivializes every single mission. Diablo 4, not really my thing. The Fable footage they showed reminded me of Witcher 3, definitely not my thing. Fragpunk. This looks like you get cards that enhance your abilities and do stuff, like if Paper Mario Sticker Star was an FPS. Artsy mouse game, artsy skateboard game, Flight Simulator always looks so damn pretty, and there's a new Life is Strange coming out. Now, the first Life is Strange is a guilty pleasure of mine. It can be very unsettling and even emotionally potent sometimes, but it's also one of the most unintentionally funny video games in the last 10 years because the dialogue was written by a drunken moose.
We had a genuine moment.
We all have our moments. Why do you think she acts so mean?
She's
a bitch!
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle looks pretty fun. If I understand correctly, it's made by the developers of Wolfenstein New Order and Colossus. Those games are incredible in the right moments, but they were often held back by those sections in between where you're running all over the shitty hub world to fetch some slip of paper that fucking Fergus left on the toilet or whatever. With this Indiana Jones game, I just hope that they sort that shit out. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers is another game that almost made me say, this reminds me of Ghost of Tsushima, but I'm starting to think I might just be completely stupid. Assassino Credo Shadowino Pepperino. I lost touch with Assassin's Creed a while ago. I know people who can make these games look really cool when they play them, but it requires a level of dedication that I never care enough to put in when I play them. Then they closed it off with a trailer for a new Gears game, which includes chords from Mad World, which was used in the trailers for the first game. I don't know anything about Gears except for that, and even I teared up when I heard it. It's like they really cared. Damn, dude. The most fascinating Xbox project to me is Kojima's OD, because I don't know anything about that whatsoever. It was shown off at the Game Awards, which didn't clear anything up at all. Even though it wasn't at the showcase, I am happy to see Kojima take another crack at horror. Ever since Silent Hills fell through, which I can't believe was almost 10 years ago, I have to imagine he's got a lot of unexplored ideas that he would love to reevaluate. Then there's Nintendo, who went harder than even I could predict. I think a lot of people, myself included, were expecting this to be a pretty light direct. This is the Nintendo Switch's last year, with its successor's announcement expected possibly by the end of this year, so you might expect they'd slow it down with the Switch games, but no. First off, Mario RPGs are back. Last year we got the Mario RPG remake, this year Thousand Year Door got a remake, which is excellent by the way, and this direct started off with a brand new Mario and Luigi game. I'm really excited for this one. We haven't gotten a new one of these in 3 billion years. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. It's nice to know I don't have to pay $98,000 for an actual NWC. Fairy Tail 2 is an anime style game that's actually based on an anime. Fantasian Neo Dimension got some Final Fantasy names on it. Switch Sports reminds me a lot of the PSVR games in that I don't know who plays it. Memories in Orbit looks pretty fun. Disney thing, oh shit, Hello Kitty. Farmagia. I don't know why, but this actually looks kind of fun to me. It was nice to see Donkey Kong Returns get some new HD visuals, but what Donkey Kong fans really need now more than ever is an actually new video game. Maybe the Switch 2 will have something like that, or maybe they'll just make Donkey Kong Country Returns 1440p. HD 2D remakes of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 looking very pretty. Funko Pop's video game, Luigi's Mansion 2 got a re-release. I'm hoping they could do the first game as well. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded. This looks fun. I haven't played a ton of tower defense games, but I usually enjoy them when I do. I really gotta play more. Mario Party, don't ever play Mario Party on your own. You will hurt yourself. Do not make the same mistake that I did. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom appears to be borrowing the same art direction as the Link's Awakening remake, but with this weirdo gameplay mechanic of spawning objects that you can interact with and use in all kinds of weird ways. Zelda is in a weird place right now. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are excellent video games, but they dramatically deviated from the previous titles in many respects, and people are starting to discuss the possibility that they may have led Zelda's identity astray. They abandoned a lot of traditions and tropes that made the older titles what they were, and while they built something great on that premise, a lot of longtime fans feel left behind. With Echoes of Wisdom, it looks like they're trying to bring the open-ended gameplay dynamics of Breath of the Wild into the top-down format in a way, suggesting that you can solve many of the game's challenges in a lot of different ways, which is not something that you'd normally associate with 2D Zelda. I would love to see how that works out. Just Dance 2025? I didn't know they still made these. There's a Hobbit game, not to be confused with the Smeagol game, And at the end of it all, they finally showed Metroid Prime 4, which I honestly assumed was just never gonna happen. While there was a lot of great stuff in this Direct, I'm still most excited for the Switch 2, because you just know that they're gonna have to announce it alongside some nuclear exclusive that can't be played on the regular Switch. I'm picturing a Mario Odyssey 2 level game, you know what I mean? If you asked me what game I'm looking forward to the most, I would try to avoid saying Grand Theft Auto 6 because that's what everybody says, but I mean, yeah, that is definitely one of the games. Somebody from Rockstar suggested that while GTA 6 will be a big deal, it won't be wildly different from GTA 5, and if I had to guess what that actually means, they're probably saying, yeah, we saw the Nakey Jakey video, but Red Dead 2 still sold 3 billion copies, so we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. I don't know that for a fact, but it would not surprise me at all. GTA 5 has a lot going for it, but it also had a number of lame-ass missions that you just wish you could skip over, and I'm hoping that at the very least, 6 will be more conscientious about what's actually fun and not. Open world video games have evolved tremendously over the years and have outclassed Rockstar in many respects, but they still have the most insanely, meticulously detailed maps out of any open world game. Next year, Grand Theft Auto 4 will be old enough to buy Grand Theft Auto 4 without their dad, and even modern open world games are struggling to reach it from that angle. GTA 6 already appears to be continuing that rich tradition. I don't even want to know how much time was spent making this big ass world, and that's just what we've been allowed to see so far. I am a little concerned about the story though. It's a sort of Bonnie and Clyde type beat with two main protagonists, which isn't the first thing that springs to mind when I think of a GTA story.
Takes photos of guys in the shower at the gym and then jacks off on his wife's face.
Even with the departure of Dan Houser, I don't want to count Rockstar out because they've demonstrated that they can write some pretty compelling stuff, so I'll wait till it comes out. Maybe they'll call each other hipsters.
I want this conversation to stop right away. Hipster. Fuck you!
As it seems with every year, there's a lot of stuff to just glance over, but unlike previous years, there seems to be a lot to look forward to as well. We've already gotten some great stuff this year, my personal favorite so far being Animal Well, so there is a momentum going on here for those who are paying attention. And of course, we got all kinds of fan games dropping all the time, as usual. Hopefully this momentum can sustain itself for a bit, or you could start going through your backlog and play that copy of Sniper Elite 4 that you bought on a Steam sale 300 years ago and never installed.